The empire stretched across 17 star systems, its golden fleets casting shadows over 1,000 worlds. For 3, they had ruled without question, their crystalline cities floating in the void like jeweled crowns. They believed themselves to be the chosen children of the cosmos, beings of pure energy wrapped in perfect biological forms. Their technology seemed like magic to lesser species. They are counted in centuries, and their psychic abilities allowed them to bend reality to their will. Emperor stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Throne, his flagship that served as both palace and weapon of mass destruction. His luminescent skin pulsed with internal energy, and his 6-foot frame radiated an aura of absolute authority. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he gazed upon the addition to his empire, a small blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. "Tell me about this Earth," commanded, his voice carrying harmonics that could shatter glass when he was displeased. High Inquisitor approached, her flowing robes trailing streams of condensed starlight. "A primitive world, Divine Emperor. The inhabitants call themselves humans. They have barely achieved faster-than-light travel, and their technology is crude at best. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, simple electronics. They are divided into countless factions and spend most of their time fighting each other." Laughed a sound like crystal chimes in a gentle breeze. "How delightfully barbaric, and their population. Approximately 8 billion, scattered across their single world and a few meager colonies. They show no psychic abilities, no energy manipulation, no understanding of dimensional mathematics. They are, in essence, clever animals playing with fire." The Emperor's advisors murmured their agreement. Director of Subjugation stepped forward, his ancient form crackling with barely contained power. "Shall we proceed with standard pacification protocols, Divine One? We estimate complete conquest within 72 hours. Considered this. Standard protocol involved disabling all technology, destroying military installations, and implementing neural control networks to ensure compliance. It was efficient, proven, and had worked flawlessly on hundreds of worlds. "No," the Emperor said finally. "I find myself curious about these humans. They interest me. Send them a message first. Offer them the chance to surrender with dignity. I wish to see how they respond to the inevitable." Bowed deeply. "As you command, Divine Emperor, shall we demonstrate our power to encourage compliance?" "Of course, nothing too dramatic. Perhaps disable one of their space stations. Something to show them the futility of resistance without being unnecessarily cruel." The message was broadcast simultaneously to every communication device on Earth and its colonies. It appeared in the native language of each listener, transmitted directly into their minds through psychic technology. "People of Earth," the voice of Emperor resonated in the consciousness of every human being simultaneously. "I am Divine Emperor of the Empire. Your world now falls under our dominion. You have witnessed our power in the destruction of your orbital station. Submit peacefully, accept our guidance, and your species will be preserved and given a place in our glorious empire. Resist and face extinction. You have 72 hours to transmit your surrender through any communication device. Choose wisely." The message ended, leaving 8 billion humans in stunned silence. Within hours, Earth's governments were in emergency session. The destruction of the International Space Station had been swift and incomprehensible. The massive structure had simply dissolved, its atoms scattered like dust in space. No weapon signatures, no energy readings, nothing that human science could explain. President of the United Earth Coalition stood before the emergency assembly in Geneva, her face grave. "Ladies and we face an enemy beyond our understanding. Our greatest minds have analyzed the footage from ISS's destruction. They can offer no explanation for how it was accomplished." General, representing the combined military forces, activated a holographic display. "Ma'am, our entire nuclear arsenal couldn't reproduce what we witnessed. The station was disintegrated at the molecular level in 3.2 seconds. We're dealing with technology that might as well be magic." Dr. Sarah Martinez, Earth's leading, cleared her throat nervously. "We've detected their ship in the outer system. It's enormous, roughly the size of Manhattan and composed of materials we can't identify. It appears to be generating its own gravitational field." "So what are our options?" President asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Surrender," Admiral Foster said bluntly. "We have nothing that could even scratch their paint. Our most advanced fighters would be like throwing paper airplanes at a battleship." The debate continued for 18 hours. Some advocated immediate surrender, others wanted to attempt negotiation, and a small but vocal minority insisted on resistance regardless of the odds. As the arguments raged, similar discussions were taking place in every major government on Earth. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Cheyenne Mountain complex, a different conversation was taking place. Colonel Jack Harrison sat across from Dr. Watson, one of Earth's most brilliant theoretical physicists, and Captain Maria Santos, a veteran of the Mars colonial wars. "They think we're primitives," Colonel Harrison said, studying the intercepted communications between vessels. "According to our translation algorithms, they're treating this like a routine subjugation." Dr. Watson nodded grimly. "Which might be our only advantage. They're not taking us seriously." "What do you mean?" Captain Santos asked. "Think about it," Watson continued, her eyes bright with possibilities. "They demonstrated their power, made their demands, and then they're just waiting. No follow-up attacks, no positioning for invasion, nothing. They're so confident in their superiority that they're giving us time to make a decision." Colonel Harrison leaned forward. "Time we might be able to use." "Exactly. I've been analyzing the ISS destruction footage frame by frame. Whatever technology they used, it required line of sight and approximately 3 seconds of sustained focus. That suggests limitations." Captain Santos frowned. "But even if we could mount some kind of resistance, what would be the point? You said it yourself, we can't even scratch them." Dr. Watson smiled grimly. "Maybe we don't need to scratch them. Maybe we just need to make them bleed." 67 hours after the ultimatum was delivered, Emperor grew impatient. No formal surrender had been transmitted, though his monitors had detected thousands of individual humans attempting to communicate submission. The governments, it seemed, were still debating. "Disappointing," he told his advisors. "I had hoped they would show more wisdom." High Inquisitor consulted her crystalline tablet. "Divine Emperor, perhaps we should send another demonstration, destroy one of their cities to emphasize the consequences of defiance." "No," said thoughtfully. "I find their resistance intriguing, very well, begin invasion protocols, but I want prisoners from their leadership. I wish to study these humans more closely." The fleet moved toward Earth like a school of luminescent fish swimming through the void. 12 massive warships, each one capable of sterilizing a planet, approached humanities with serene confidence. They never detected the mines. Captain Santos had spent 48 hours in an EVA suit, manually placing the devices at precise coordinates calculated by Dr. Watson. They weren't traditional explosives. Earth's nuclear weapons would barely register to shields. Instead, they were something far more elegant and dangerous. Dr. Watson had made a crucial discovery while analyzing the alien transmissions. The psychic abilities weren't magical at all. They were based on quantum field manipulation using neural interfaces enhanced by technology. More importantly, those interfaces operated on very specific frequencies. The devices Captain Santos had deployed weren't bombs. They were signal amplifiers, carefully tuned to broadcast a harmonic resonance on the exact frequency used by neural implants. As the alien fleet entered Earth's inner system, proximity sensors triggered the hidden devices. Suddenly, the serene silence of space was filled with a piercing, discordant note that existed on frequencies no human could hear. Aboard the Eternal Throne, Empress screamed. The psychic feedback hit every simultaneously, a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard transmitted directly into their enhanced minds. But more than just annoying, the frequency disrupted their neural interfaces, severing their connection to their technology. For beings who had spent 3,000 years relying on thought-controlled systems, the sudden loss of mental interface was like going blind and deaf simultaneously. Ships veered off course as their pilots lost control. Weapon systems fired randomly or shut down completely. The crystalline matrices that powered their engines flickered and destabilized. In the chaos, 3 warships collided with each other, their elegant forms crumpling like paper. Another ship's main reactor went critical, its death illuminating the solar system like a brief new star. Emperor, blood trickling from his ears, struggled to regain his composure. What is happening?" he gasped, his mental voice barely a whisper. High Inquisitor was unconscious, collapsed on the bridge deck. Most of the crew was in similar condition, overwhelmed by the psychic assault. Through sheer force of will, managed to activate an emergency communication channel using manual controls, something No had needed to use in centuries. All ships, he broadcast on audio frequencies, his voice hoarse and strained. Fall back to minimum safe distance, emergency protocols, manual control only. As the surviving ships limped away from Earth, their crews struggling to operate technology they barely remembered how to use manually, a new message was broadcast from Earth. It was transmitted in perfect, using their own communication protocols against them. Emperor, came the voice of President, somehow speaking the alien language flawlessly. We are not the primitives you believed us to be. We are humanity, and we do not kneel. You wanted to see our response to the inevitable. This is our response. We make our own inevitability. The message continued, and realized with growing horror that the humans had been monitoring and analyzing every communication since their arrival. We have studied your technology, your biology, your psychology. We know your weaknesses now. Retreat from our system, and we will allow you to leave unharmed. Remain and discover what happens when clever animals decide to bare their fangs. Emperor stared at Earth through the viewports of his damaged flagship, seeing the small blue world with entirely new eyes. For the first time in 3, the divine emperor of the empire felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans had done the impossible. They had wounded gods. The wounded fleet hung motionless in space, 40 million kilometers from Earth's moon. Emperor sat in his command throne, no longer the radiant god-king who had arrived with such confidence. His luminescent skin had dimmed to a sickly pale glow, and the crown of living crystal that marked his divine authority flickered intermittently. "Status report," he demanded through gritted teeth, still struggling with the unfamiliar sensation of using vocal cords instead of mental communication. Director of Subjugation approached unsteadily, his ancient form trembling with the effort of staying upright. "Divine Emperor, the damage is extensive. We have lost 4 ships entirely, and the remaining 8 are operating at minimal capacity. Our crews are slowly relearning manual operations, but progress is slow. And the signal that wounded us, still active, but at a much reduced intensity at this distance. Our technicians believe the humans have created a field around their planet that disrupts our neural interfaces. We cannot approach without risking complete incapacitation." Slammed his fist against the armrest of his throne, causing it to crack along crystalline fault lines. "How is this possible? They are primitives. Their technology is behind ours." High Inquisitor, now awake but visibly shaken, stepped forward carefully. "Divine Emperor, I have been analyzing their response. It appears we underestimated them catastrophically. They did not simply resist, they studied us. While we were confident in our superiority, they were learning." "Learning what?" "Everything, my lord. They intercepted our communications, analyzed our technology signatures, even studied the biological readings from our crew during the initial contact. When they spoke to you in perfect, it was not just translation software. They had cracked our language completely." Felt something cold crawl down his spine. "Show me their communications, all of them." The next several hours were a humbling education for the Divine Emperor. His intelligence officers had been monitoring Earth's transmissions since the initial contact, but only now did they begin to understand what they were seeing. The humans had mobilized with a speed and efficiency that belief. Within hours of the first message, every major government, corporation, university, and research facility on Earth had been working in unprecedented cooperation. Scientists shared data freely, militaries coordinated across national boundaries, and civilians volunteered for dangerous missions without hesitation. But most shocking of all was how they had adapted to the threat. Instead of cowering or futilely attacking with conventional weapons, they had immediately begun studying their enemies. Radio telescopes tracked ships and analyzed their energy signatures. Quantum computers worked around the clock to decode alien communication protocols. Teams of psychologists and sociologists analyzed behavior patterns to identify weaknesses. "They turned our own arrogance against us," observed quietly. "While we saw them as insects, they saw us as a puzzle to solve." "And they solved it," said bitterly. "In less than 3 days, they accomplished what should have taken decades." A new transmission arrived from Earth, interrupting his brooding. This time it was not President who spoke, but a woman identified as Dr. Watson. Emperor, her voice carried clearly through the ship's communication systems, speaking flawless with what sounded almost like amusement. I hope you're feeling better. My name is Dr. Watson, and I'm what humans call a theoretical physicist. I wanted you to know that the neural disruption field was just our opening move. Felt his blood turn to ice water. You see, Dr. Watson continued, we've been very busy while you've been recovering. We've learned so much about your people in just these few days. Did you know that your psychic abilities are actually quantum field manipulations channeled through crystalline neural implants? Fascinating technology, really. We're particularly interested in how you use dimensional resonance to achieve faster-than-light travel. The Emperor's advisors exchanged horrified glances. That information was among their most closely guarded secrets. We've also been studying your biology, Watson went on cheerfully. Your people's dependency on energy absorption from your home star is quite elegant, but it does create certain vulnerabilities, especially when you're far from compatible energy sources. How could they possibly know that? Whispered. The answer came immediately, as if Watson had heard him. Oh, we know because we've been watching you very carefully. Every energy emission from your ships, every biological reading we can detect, every pattern in your behavior. You've been here for 72 hours, and we've been learning for every second of it. The transmission paused, and when it resumed, Watson's tone had become more serious. Emperor, you came here believing yourselves to be gods ruling over primitive animals, but you've made a critical error in judgment. We humans have a saying, the most dangerous animal is one with its back against the wall. You've put 8 billion humans against the wall, and now you're about to discover why we're the apex predators on our planet. The screen flickered, and suddenly was looking at what appeared to be a massive underground facility. Hundreds of humans in white coats were working frantically on projects he couldn't identify. But what made his heart race was the technology he could see technology that looked disturbingly familiar. Welcome to the Global Defense Initiative headquarters, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Watson said, now visible on screen as a middle-aged woman with determined eyes. As you can see, we've been busy, very busy. The camera panned across the facility, showing impossible sights. Human technicians were working with crystalline matrices that pulsed with energy identical to technology. Massive computers were running what appeared to be dimensional calculations, and in the center of it all, a device that made his breath catch in his throat. Recognize it? Watson asked. We call it the Prometheus drive. It's our reverse-engineered version of your faster-than-light propulsion system. Took us about 60 hours to crack the basic principles once we analyzed your ship's energy signatures. Impossible, breathed. You keep using that word, Watson said with a slight smile. I don't think it means what you think it means. You see, Emperor, you've been dealing with a very specific type of intelligent species. We're what you might call aggressive problem solvers. When faced with a challenge, we don't give up. We don't retreat. We adapt, we learn, and we overcome. She gestured to something off-camera, and the view shifted to show a massive construction bay. Inside, something that belief was taking shape. This is the UES Defiance, Watson announced. Our first faster-than-light warship built using principles learned from studying your technology. It should be operational within 18 hours. Stared at the screen in mounting horror. The ship was clearly human in design, angular, utilitarian, built for function over beauty. But it bristled with weapons that looked disturbingly like improved versions of technology. How, he managed to ask. Simple, Watson replied. You've spent 3,000 years as gods, ruling through superiority and fear. You've forgotten what it means to struggle, to fight for survival, to grow stronger through adversity. We humans have never forgotten that. Every day of our existence has been a fight against something, disease, disaster, each other, our own limitations. We've spent our entire history turning challenges into opportunities. The camera view switched again, this time showing a massive orbital platform under construction above Earth. Humans in spacesuits were assembling something that looked like a giant ring. This is the Guardian Array, Watson explained. A network of defensive platforms that will protect not just Earth, but any world that wishes to stand against tyranny. Because you see, Emperor, we've been in contact with some of your other subjects. Felt the deck seem to shift beneath him. What? Oh yes, we've been very busy indeed. Turns out, when you rule through fear and subjugation for 3, you make quite a few enemies. The Republic, the free traders of Spiral Station, the resistance cells on a dozen worlds. They've all been very eager to share information about your empire's weaknesses. New images appeared on the screen, alien faces of species recognized as former subjects of his empire. They were speaking in their own languages, but human translation software provided subtitles. "The humans have shown us that they can be beaten," said a commander, her features fierce with hope. "For the first time in 1,000 years, we have hope." "They offer us technology, weapons, alliance," added a free trader captain. "Not subjugation, but partnership." Watson reappeared on screen. "You see, Emperor, you're no longer dealing with just humanity. You're dealing with the first truly free alliance this galaxy has seen in, and we're all very interested in discussing the future of your empire." She paused, letting that sink in. "But first, you have a choice to make. You can retreat to your home systems and begin negotiating the terms of your empire's dissolution. Or—" The screen split, showing two images side by side. On the left was the peaceful image of ships leaving the solar system. On the right was a tactical display showing dozens of alien fleets converging on space. "The rebellion you've been desperately trying to prevent for 3,000 years is about to begin," Watson said quietly. "The only question is whether you want to face it as a retreating conqueror or as a war criminal." Stared at the displays, his mind reeling. In less than 4 days, these humans had not just defeated his invasion force, but had somehow organized a galaxy-spanning revolution against his empire. They had studied his technology and improved upon it. They had contacted his enemies and forged alliances. They had turned his own supposed divinity into a weapon against him. "This is impossible," he whispered again. Watson's final words carried across space with the weight of absolute certainty. "Emperor, you're about to learn that for humanity, impossible is just another word for hasn't happened yet. You have 24 hours to begin your withdrawal from this system. After that, we'll consider any presence an act of war." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. High Inquisitor was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Divine Emperor, what are your orders?" Stared at the showing Earth, a small blue world that had just shattered everything he believed about the universe. For 3,000 years, his people had ruled as gods. Now, in the span of a few days, they had been revealed as nothing more than bullies with advanced technology. And the worst part was, he was beginning to suspect that the humans weren't finished with them yet. This wasn't just resistance. This was revolution. "Prepare for withdrawal," he said finally, his voice hollow with defeat. "And send a message to tell them the age of our empire is ending." As the fleet began its long retreat toward home, none of them noticed the small human probe that had attached itself to the underside of their flagship, its sensors recording everything for the intelligence networks of an awakening galaxy. The revolution had begun, and humanity was leading the charge. 6 months had passed since the humiliation at Earth, and Emperor barely recognized his empire anymore. The magnificent crystal cities that had once floated serenely in space now bristled with defensive systems, their beauty marred by the harsh reality of war. The golden fleets that had once inspired awe throughout the galaxy now huddled close to home, afraid to venture far from their protective barriers. The revolution Dr. Watson had promised was no longer a distant threat. It was here. Stood in the ruins of his throne room aboard the Eternal Throne, his flagship now serving as a mobile command center rather than a symbol of divine authority. The crystalline walls were cracked from repeated attacks, and the once magnificent chamber was filled with military equipment and tactical displays showing the devastating reality of his situation. "Report," he commanded wearily to his remaining advisors. General, formerly Director of Subjugation, stepped forward. The ancient had adapted better than most to their new reality, embracing military efficiency over divine pretense. "My lord, we have lost 7 more systems in the past week. The Free Alliance has taken the cluster, and the humans have established a forward base at station." "How many ships do they have now?" asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Conservative estimates put the combined rebel fleet at over 3,000 vessels," replied grimly. "And they're not just using our stolen technology anymore. They're innovating, improving upon it. Their ships are faster, more maneuverable, and their weapons." He paused, calling up a tactical display showing footage from the latest battle. Sleek human warships danced through space with impossible grace, their weapons carving through shielding like paper. But more troubling were the alien vessels fighting alongside them. Battle cruisers, stealth fighters, and dozens of other designs from species that had once cowered before might. They fight like a pack, observed, each species contributing their unique strengths coordinated by human strategic doctrine. It's unlike anything we've ever faced. High Inquisitor, now bearing the more practical title of Intelligence Director, approached with fresh reports. My lord, we've intercepted communications from the rebel leadership. They're planning something they call Operation Prometheus. Felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had named their stolen faster-than-light drive after the mythological figure who stole fire from the gods. The symbolism was not lost on him. What do we know about this operation? Very little, admitted. The humans have developed encryption methods that our best code breakers cannot penetrate, but our deep intelligence sources suggest it involves a direct assault on the itself. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. There was the sacred heart of the Empire, a massive planet surrounded by the most powerful defensive systems ever conceived. It was considered absolutely impregnable. That's impossible, said, though the word had lost all meaning to him over the past months. This defense is... He was interrupted by an urgent alarm. The bridge crew scrambled to their stations as proximity sensors screamed warnings. My lord, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission. It's from Dr. Watson. Closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. Put it through. The main flickered to life, showing the familiar face of the human physicist who had become the architect of his empire's downfall. But she was no longer in the underground facility beneath Earth. Now she stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive warship, surrounded by beings from a dozen different species. Hello again, Emperor, Dr. Watson said, her tone conversational despite the circumstances. I hope you're well. I wanted to give you advance notice of our arrival in your home system. Felt his heart stop. Arrival. Watson smiled and gestured behind her. The camera view expanded, revealing the bridge of what could only be the largest warship ever built. Through the massive viewports, space itself seemed to ripple and bend. Meet the UES Prometheus, Watson announced. Our flagship, equipped with what we call a dimensional fold drive. We've improved quite a bit on your faster-than-light technology. As she spoke, space around the eternal throne began to distort. Impossible geometries twisted reality as dozens of ships materialized from what the humans called fold space, a dimension that existed between dimensions, allowing for instantaneous travel across vast distances. The Free Alliance fleet that emerged was breathtaking in its diversity and terrifying in its size. Human ships with their angular, utilitarian design, graceful vessels that seemed to flow like liquid metal, massive battle fortresses bristling with weapons, and at the center of it all, the Prometheus itself, a ship so large it had its own gravitational field. Hal whispered, staring at the impossible sight. The same way we've accomplished everything else, Watson replied, having somehow heard his question. We learned, we adapted, we refused to accept limitations. She gestured to the beings around her. Allow me to introduce the Free Alliance Command Council, Admiral of Earth's United Fleet, War Leader of the Republic, Prime Navigator of the Sovereignty, and representatives from 47 other species who were tired of living under the boot of a dying empire. Each alien leader nodded in turn, their expressions unified despite their vastly different physiologies. Realized with growing horror that these weren't conquered subjects or reluctant allies. They were true partners, bound together by shared purpose and mutual respect. Emperor, Watson continued, 6 months ago you gave humanity 72 hours to surrender. Today we're giving you the same courtesy. Surrender yourself and your remaining forces and we guarantee fair treatment under the laws of war, refuse and... She didn't need to finish the threat. The assembled fleet spoke for itself. You cannot do this, said, his voice cracking with desperation. We have ruled for 3, we are the children of the cosmos. No, said Admiral, stepping forward. You were bullies with advanced technology, there's a difference. War Leader spoke next, his features fierce with righteous anger. For 1,000 years your people enslaved mine, today the debt is paid. But it was Prime Navigator who delivered the final blow to delusions. Her melodious voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Emperor, you called yourselves gods, but gods do not fall to mortals. You were never divine. You were simply unopposed. The truth of those words hit like a physical blow. For 3,000 years, the empire had faced no real challenges, no true opposition. They had grown soft, complacent, convinced of their own superiority by an endless string of easy victories against primitive civilizations. But humanity had been different. They had fought back. They had learned. They had grown stronger with each challenge, turning every defeat into a lesson, every setback into an opportunity for improvement. "What happens now?" asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Watson's expression softened slightly. "Now, Emperor, you have a choice. You can surrender with dignity, help us transition your people to a new reality where they live as equals among the stars rather than as tyrants over them. Or you can fight to the bitter end and watch everything you ever claimed to love burn around you." She paused, her next words carrying the weight of inevitability. "But either way, your empire ends today. The age of dominion is over. The age of the Free Alliance has begun." Looked around his broken throne room, at the advisors who had spent their lives believing in their divine superiority, at the tactical displays showing the overwhelming force arrayed against them. For the first time in 3,000 years, he saw his people and his empire clearly, not as gods among mortals, but as beings who had allowed power to corrupt them into something monstrous. He began, then stopped. The weight of three of absolute authority pressed down on him, warring with the growing realization that everything he had believed was a lie. High Inquisitor stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "My lord, it's over. We cannot win this war. We lost it the moment we underestimated humanity." General nodded in agreement. "The humans didn't just defeat us militarily. They showed the galaxy a better way. They proved that cooperation is stronger than domination, that alliances built on respect are more powerful than empires built on fear." Looked at his advisors, seeing in their faces the same realization that was dawning in his own mind. They weren't surrendering to a conquering army. They were being offered a chance at redemption. "Dr. Watson," he said finally, his voice steady for the first time in months, I surrender. On behalf of the Empire, I surrender unconditionally to the Free Alliance." The words felt strange on his tongue, but also liberating. For the first time in centuries, Emperor felt the weight of absolute power lift from his shoulders. Watson nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Emperor. Your cooperation will be noted and appreciated." She gestured to someone off-screen, and the transmission shifted to show what appeared to be a massive conference room. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species were gathered around a circular table, their voices raised in animated but respectful debate. "Welcome to the future," Watson said. "The Free Alliance Council is already drafting new charters for galactic governance. Not rule by the strong over the weak, but a true democracy where every species has a voice, every world has representation." As watched, he saw his former subjects, humans and species he didn't even recognize, working together as equals. They were debating everything from trade regulations to environmental protection, from territorial boundaries to technological sharing agreements. "It won't be easy," Watson admitted. "Democracy never is, but it's better than empire, it's better than tyranny, and it's better than the endless cycle of conquest and rebellion that has plagued this galaxy for." The transmission ended with an image that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The Prometheus, flagship of the Free Alliance, moving slowly toward the knot as a conqueror, but as a liberator. Behind it came the combined fleets of 47 species, united not by fear or subjugation, but by hope for a better future. Emperor, the last divine ruler of the Empire, watched his grow larger on thee and realized that for the first time in 3,000 years, he was looking forward to tomorrow. The age of gods was ending. The age of mortals working together had begun. And in the end, that proved far more divine than any empire built on the worship of power could ever be. Humanity had indeed brought the gods low, but in doing so they had lifted everyone else up.